And I'm going to break off from this story now because this is very important breaking news. The Sun tomorrow on its front page will have...
The British royal family has been plunged into a tense struggle over a priceless heirloom after the Duke of Kent unexpectedly decided to hand the Cambridge Sapphires to Catherine, a coveted jewelry collection over which even Queen Camilla holds no authority. What is even more shocking, however, is the urgent reason behind his decision and why the recipient had to be the Princess of Wales above all others. The real bombshell dropped during the handover ceremony. As Catherine accepted the sapphire box in front of the assembled guests, cameras caught a visibly displeased Camilla, clutching her handbag tightly, before making an unusually early departure. Adding fuel to the fire, Princess Charlotte was suddenly drawn into the narrative, sparking speculation that Catherine is already mapping out a line of succession that could keep these sapphires permanently out of Camilla's reach. How will Camilla respond after being publicly snubbed right in front of the lenses? And did Prince Edward quietly hand Catherine something far more dangerous than sapphires, the ultimate authority to decide the next royal woman to wear them? In the quiet confines of the royal residence, Prince Edward, Duke of Kent, a silent elder statesman of the House of Windsor, sat at his antique desk, immersed in deep reflection on his family's legacy. After decades of devoted service to this crown, as the first cousin of the late Queen Elizabeth II and a grandson of King George V, he understood better than anyone the toll of time and the shifting tides of history. His back was slightly stooped under the weight of the passing years, yet his calm blue eyes retained the clarity and resolve of a man who had witnessed nearly a century of triumphs and turmoil within the royal family. Before him lay a faded, deep blue, velvet-lined wooden box. The Duke's thin, vein-marked hands gently brushed against the brass clasp. Inside rested the legendary Cambridge Sapphire suite, featuring an exquisitely crafted tiara, a diamond-paved necklace adorned with striking deep blue sapphires, matching brooches, and a pair of coordinating earrings. The history of this parure spanned generations, originally belonging to the Cambridge branch of the family since the 19th century. Unlike the treasures held in the official royal collection, which fell under the control of the Crown and the institution, this sapphire suite was entirely the private property of Edward's lineage. This meant he possessed sole authority over its destiny, requiring no approval whatsoever from King Charles III or Queen Camilla. The Duke's gaze lingered on the sapphires glistening beneath the warm yellow light. That radiance recalled not only the grandeur of the past, but also the sorrowful chapters of his family's history. Decades ago, under the strain of financial hardship and post-war upheavals, several precious pieces from the family's private collection had been forced onto the auction block or passed into the hands of private collectors around the world. Every time a treasure departed, a piece of the family's history was severed, scattered, and lost forever behind the doors of private museums. The nightmare of the Cambridge Sapphires being further piecemealed, auctioned off, or falling into the hands of those who lacked reverence for tradition had haunted Edward throughout his twilight years. He refused to be the one who stood by and watched his ancestors' legacy dissolve into thin air. Amidst his wandering thoughts, the image of Catherine, formerly the Duchess of Cambridge and currently the Princess of Wales, emerged as the perfect answer to his years of anxiety. Their bond was far more than a mere relationship between a royal elder and a grandniece-in-law. The connection between Edward and Catherine had been forged through years of shared work within the Scout Association, a charitable organization to which Edward had dedicated decades as president since 1975, before Catherine officially joined him as joint president in September 2020. Throughout their time working side by side on community initiatives, Edward had closely observed Catherine's every step and gesture. He recognized in this young woman an extraordinary composure, an unyielding sense of duty, and a profound reverence for traditional royal values. Catherine did not carry out her obligations out of mere duty. She brought to them sincerity, propriety, and a natural elegance that the old Duke deeply cherished. Furthermore, the title Duchess of Cambridge, which Catherine had borne for over a decade from her fairy tale wedding in 2011 until 2022, felt like a destined connection to the jewels known as the Cambridge Sapphires. This coincidence of titles was more than just a name. It evoked in Edward's heart a powerful sense of homecoming. Under Catherine's stewardship, the Sapphire suite would never be locked away in dark safes or bartered away on an auction floor. They would once again appear in all their splendor at major state occasions, shining brightly upon the tiara of the woman who would one day become the Queen of England. A wave of resolve surged within the old Duke. His hand gently lowered the lid of the velvet box. The decision was made. Uncapping his fountain pen, he began to carefully write out the deed of transfer for the private property. Every stroke of ink was a firm declaration that the Cambridge Sapphire collection had found its most worthy custodian. Catherine would be the new guardian of his family's heritage. Yet as the final lines of ink dried, another shadow of reflection flickered in Edward's eyes. He knew all too well that a decision so historic and independent could never unfold in absolute peace. Unforeseen by many yet anticipated by the seasoned Duke, transferring this entire private treasure to Catherine would inevitably bruise the pride and incite the envy of another powerful figure within Buckingham Palace, Queen Camilla. His decision, though, rooted entirely in the desire to protect his family's legacy, had unwittingly set the stage for a quiet yet fierce undercurrent within the royal house. News of Prince Edward's decision was not announced through grand press releases, but instead drifted quietly through the palace's long carpeted corridors beneath the glow of crystal chandeliers. This choice was no impulsive whim of old age, but the culmination of years spent in quiet, perceptive observation. In the Duke of Kent's memory, the days spent alongside Catherine as joint presidents of the Scout Association remained vivid. He recalled windswept afternoons on lush green lawns, where Catherine, attired in simple yet impeccable outfits, immersed herself in youth activities with a rare warmth and natural grace. Free from rigid protocol or upper-class detachment, she engaged with everyone she met through complete and undivided attention. Edward recognized in Catherine an invaluable quality that no amount of royal training could ever manufacture: an innate patience and a deep-seated commitment to community values. She did not view royal duties as performances designed for the camera, but as an authentic, lifelong calling. Her reverence for tradition impressed the seasoned Duke even further. In a fast-moving world driven by fleeting trends, Catherine maintained a dignified restraint and a profound respect for history and the demanding standards of the royal house. She understood the true value of every heirloom, every garment, and every public gesture. For Edward, who had dedicated his entire life to preserving the dignity and hierarchy of the crown, Catherine's steadfast devotion offered the ultimate sense of reassurance. The transfer also carried a deeply meaningful historical resonance. For over a decade, the title Duchess of Cambridge had been inextricably bound to Catherine's image, establishing her as the vibrant, youthful face of a new generation of royals. Meanwhile, this precious sapphire collection bore that very same name, a legacy tied to Edward's family line across generations. To the aging Duke, this overlap was far more than a coincidence of titles. It was a destiny quietly ordained by time. Edward knew that if the sapphires remained locked away in the dark safes of his family branch, they would gradually fade into inanimate artifacts devoid of life. Worse still, once his generation passed the risk of the set being broken up or sold off to wealthy private collectors abroad was virtually inevitable. The thought of these deep blue sapphires, which had endured so much of Britain's history, ending up on a public auction block made the Duke's heart tighten. He refused to preserve them as lifeless museum pieces. He wanted them to truly live again, to return to the very heart of royal life, glowing against Catherine's elegant gowns at state banquets and grand diplomatic events. Resting upon her shoulders or adorning her tiara, this gift would serve as a bridge connecting a glorious past with the future of the throne. The legal transfer of this private property was swiftly finalized with sharp signatures and official seals. Every procedure was carried out quietly yet decisively, Establishing an irrevocable fact, Catherine was now the official custodian of the Cambridge Sapphires. Yet on the other side of the palace, Queen Camilla received the news with a simmering resentment. The Duke of Kent's utter satisfaction and Catherine's quiet gratitude acted as the spark that ignited a hidden tempest, threatening to shatter the royal family's serene facade. News of the Cambridge Sapphires' new ownership reached Camilla like a jolt to the pride of the mistress of the royal household. In her private study, bathed in the soft afternoon light streaming through the soaring arched windows of Buckingham Palace, the Queen stood leaning against the edge of a classic wooden desk. Her arms were crossed over her chest, her gaze fixed intently on the internal report that had just been delivered. Holding the position of Queen Camilla naturally possessed access to and the use of the vast majority of the Crown's grand jewelry collection. Glistening tiaras, multi-stranded pearl necklaces, and countless priceless diamonds, once belonging to the late Queen Elizabeth II and Queen Mary. Yet the immense scale of that royal treasury could not fill a distinct void. Those pieces belonged to the institution, to the Crown itself, rather than to her personal ownership. And upon realizing that the Cambridge Sapphires, a masterpiece of historical value and timeless exquisite elegance, had slipped permanently beyond her grasp, a deep-seated envy ignited fiercely within her. Camilla's brow furrowed deeply, her fingers tapping an erratic rhythm against the polished wooden tabletop, betraying an undeniable restlessness and discontent. She felt as though a painful blow had been dealt to her standing and authority. Prince Edward's choice to favor Catherine, the young grandniece-in-law, who consistently enjoyed the public's fervent affection over surrendering the collection to, or at least consulting with the reigning queen, felt like a blatant dismissal of her presence. In Camilla's eyes, this act was nothing short of a tacit declaration of the high regard and legitimacy the royal house reserved for the Princess of Wales. Her anger grew even more suffocating when confronted with a bitter legal reality. The Cambridge Sapphires were the purely private property of the Duke of Kent's line. The authority to dispose of them rested entirely in Edward's hands, though she bore the exalted title of Queen. And though King Charles III held the supreme power of the throne, neither possessed any legal standing or institutional authority to intervene, object to, or overturn that decision. This helplessness before a matter of private property meant the fire of her fury could only burn silently within, unable to erupt into an official command or formal objection. She walked slowly to the window, her gaze sweeping across the broad palace courtyard, where the guards were performing their routine changing of the guard, her hands clenched into tight fists, her wedding ring pressing hard against her skin. The sensation of being sidelined from a priceless piece of heritage within the very royal house she shared stirred an indescribable bitterness. She realized that no matter how hard she tried to consolidate her standing, the deep recesses of the ancient royal bloodlines would always retain spaces she could never reach nor control. Not a single word of reproach or public dispute was uttered. A forced composure was donned like armor to protect her dignity before her ladies-in-waiting and attendants. Yet her cold gray stare, her unusually hurried stride, and her begrudging silence spoke volumes. That unexpressed rage began to transform into a quiet undercurrent enveloping the atmosphere. The Queen's silent yet palpable tension cast a dark, ominous shadow over the handover ceremony that was soon to take place. The atmosphere inside the grand reception hall of the royal residence was steeped in elegance and solemnity. The handover ceremony for the Cambridge Sapphires was not merely a generational milestone, but had also been skillfully aligned with Princess Charlotte's 11th birthday celebration. This pairing carried a profound symbolic message. The precious suite had not only found its new custodian, but was also ushering in a new chapter of succession among the royal family's women. At center stage, Catherine carried herself with her signature poise and composure. A gentle, radiant smile lit her face as she inclined her head to receive the blue velvet box from the Duke of Kent. The sapphire tiara and necklace emitted a regal, deep blue brilliance beneath the hall lights, accentuating the Princess of Wales's elegance and restraint. Catherine's hand brushed lightly over the protective casing of the box, a delicate gesture filled with profound respect for the senior royal elder. Beside her, little Princess Charlotte, dressed in a small evening dress, leaned softly against her mother. Her bright, curious eyes taking in the sparkling jewels. The image of mother and daughter, standing side by side beside the ancestral heirloom, painted a picture of continuity and the future of the crown, capturing the complete focus of the media lenses and the admiration of every guest present. Yet behind the splendor and serene exterior of the proceedings, a current of tension surged beneath the surface. Standing in a corner of the hall among distinguished guests, Queen Camilla kept her attention locked entirely on the center stage. She maintained a rigid posture and carefully applied makeup, wearing a forced, polite smile. However, as bursts of applause rang out to congratulate Catherine and young Princess Charlotte, Camilla's composure began to fracture. A television camera broadcasting live unwittingly captured the sharp emotional turn across the Queen's face. For a fleeting few seconds, her strained smile vanished entirely. Her complexion flushed red from a wave of jealousy and resentment she could no longer suppress. Camilla's eyes flickered with an undisguised coldness, her thin lips pressing tightly into a rigid line as she stared at the gleaming jewels in Catherine's hands. Her silk-gloved hand unconsciously gripped her small handbag, her knuckles pressing so hard that the fabric crumpled. The suffocating atmosphere and the bitter sense of marginalization rendered her continued presence in the room unbearable. The moment the formal proceedings concluded and guests began migrating toward the tea reception area, the Queen took an action that stunned all in attendance. Bypassing the customary royal departure protocols, she turned sharply, the hem of her evening gown sweeping across the floor with hurried strides as she made a direct exit through a side door. Her sudden premature departure as the mistress of the royal household served as a sharp severance of the already strained atmosphere. Camilla's abrupt exit did not escape the notice of the ladies-in-waiting and aristocrats in attendance. Disquieted glances were swiftly exchanged, and muted whispers began to circulate behind fluttered fans. The sight of the Queen's flushed face and her hurried departure instantly became the most intensely debated topic behind the scenes. That public display of anger reflected not only the sting of a bruised pride, but also planted a dark suspicion in the minds of those present. The Queen's discontent would certainly not end with a silent walkout, but might well be the opening salvo of a hidden storm about to break. As the noisy echoes and probing media scrutiny following the ceremony gradually subsided, the Cambridge Sapphire suite officially embarked upon a new journey, quiet yet bound for eternity. Inside Catherine's secure private dressing suite, the deep blue velvet box rested with care upon a rosewood vanity table. Catherine stood before the open box, her eyes admiring the deep blue sapphires gleaming with a noble, profound brilliance. Her hand moved slowly, gently, brushing over each gemstone, feeling the cool, exquisite craftsmanship that had traversed centuries. In the heart of the Princess of Wales, accepting this parure had never been a personal triumph or a means to parade power before anyone. To her, this was a sacred trust of preservation. Fully aware of her position and her family's future, Catherine had long been quietly mapping out an iconic private jewelry collection. An independent body of heritage, untethered from the shifts or controls of the official royal collection, so that one day it could be passed intact to her daughter, Princess Charlotte. The Cambridge Sapphires arrived as the flawless missing piece, the sturdiest foundation for that private heritage collection. The concept of passing these treasures from mother to daughter solidified into a firm resolve within Catherine's mind. She envisioned a distant future when Charlotte, grown into womanhood, would step into the momentous state occasions of her life as a radiant Princess Royal. At that time, these historic sapphires would once again gleam, infused with new vitality from a younger generation. Every tender movement, as Catherine held the tiara, meticulously dusting the diamond borders with a specialized soft cloth, bore witness to a deep maternal devotion seamlessly woven with royal duty. This clearly outlined line of succession served as a cold splash of reality over any faint remaining hope within Camilla's heart. At Buckingham Palace, leaked whispers regarding Catherine's intentions for the jewel's future quickly reached the Queen. Camilla's bitterness turned excruciatingly sharp as she confronted a harsh truth. Any opportunity to touch, borrow, or possess the Cambridge Sapphires had vanished forever. Edward's private transfer, combined with Catherine's generational legacy plan, had constructed an unyielding legal and moral fortress. The sapphires were no longer just a gift. They were now an unbreakable link in the generational chain leading from mother, the Princess of Wales, to daughter, Princess Charlotte. Young Princess Charlotte's central place in this legacy plan rendered any scheme or dissatisfaction on Camilla's part completely futile. A mother preparing a private heritage for her own daughter was a natural bond of sentiment and tradition that no one could challenge or condemn. Camilla realized that any move or intervention targeting the jewels would now be viewed as a blatant intrusion upon a royal child's private inheritance, an act that would permanently ruin her standing before both the public and the aristocracy. Catherine smiled softly as her eyes caught the petite figure of Charlotte playing on the green lawn below. She gently lowered the lid of the blue velvet box. The soft click of the brass latch echoed like a deliberate, unwavering seal. The deep blue Cambridge Sapphires had found a safe harbor, and their journey from mother to daughter was now charted with order and certainty, forever beyond the reach of hidden currents of power. A heavy, tranquil silence finally settled back over the sweeping staterooms and grand reception halls after days of whisperings and quiet underlying turmoil surrounding the fate of the Cambridge Sapphires. Prince Edward's decisive action had proved to be far more than a simple act of gifting between royal relatives. It had officially drawn the curtain on a long, turbulent historical chapter for the priceless parure. Over the past century, these velvety deep blue sapphires had survived a perilous history, repeatedly buffeted by the shifting fortunes of the family. On more than one occasion, under the crushing weight of estate taxes and post-war economic strains, the collection had teetered on the brink of being dismantled piece by piece, auctioned off on the volatile international market, or lost forever behind the high secluded walls of private collectors in distant corners of the globe. Yet now, through the acute foresight and unwavering resolve of the nonagenarian Duke of Kent, the gems had found what was undoubtedly their safest and most secure harbor. Catherine, guided by her profound sense of duty, flawless discretion, and absolute reverence for royal heritage, had officially assumed the mantle of stalwart guardian over this irreplaceable ancestral treasure. Across the grounds at Buckingham Palace, however, the dark undercurrents of discontent proved far less eager to dissolve. In the quiet solitude of her private study, Queen Camilla sat motionlessly at her antique mahogany desk, her eyes staring blankly at the empty space ahead as the pale afternoon light began to dim. Though the initial blinding surge of humiliation and fury she had felt during the handover ceremony had gradually cooled, a persistent bitterness and a suffocating sense of powerlessness continued to gnaw at her mind. Whispers had circulated among her inner circle regarding potential countermeasures or formal protests, but any such maneuvers immediately collided with an unyielding legal reality. She possessed no legal footing, no historical protocol, and no institutional authority whatsoever to challenge or overturn the ownership of the jewels. The central unassailable fact remained that the Cambridge Sapphires were the purely private, personal property of the Duke of Kent's immediate lineage, entirely separate from the crown jewels and the official royal collection. This distinction created an impenetrable legal fortress shielding the suite from any royal prerogative, sovereign decree, or state intervention. For Camilla, any attempt to assert control or demand the jewels be surrendered was utterly futile, akin to a hand trying to grasp a beam of light. That lingering sense of helplessness ultimately forced the Queen to confront a cold, unvarnished truth. Even while bearing the exalted historic title of Queen Consort and enjoying unrestricted access to scores of dazzling tiaras, diamond chokers, and historic heirlooms housed within the national treasury. She remained fundamentally locked out of the private realm of family heritage that Catherine and her household now guarded. The Queen's silk-draped fingers tightened into a rigid fist against the polished tabletop before slowly relaxing a silent, involuntary gesture of surrender to the strict, unyielding rules of property law and dynastic tradition. Deep down, she recognized that the fire of her resentment, no matter how fiercely it burned beneath her composed exterior, could only consume her own peace of mind without ever altering the settled reality. Meanwhile, within the serene privacy of Adelaide Cottage, Catherine moved with deliberate care as she prepared to store the iconic parure. She reached down, gently closing the lid of the deep blue velvet box before placing it securely inside her heavy private safe. Every movement radiated the calm composure and quiet reverence of someone who understood both the weight of history and the value of time. To Catherine, this extraordinary gift from the elderly Duke of Kent was not merely an arrangement of magnificent gemstones and platinum settings. It was a sacred living link connecting a glorious imperial past with the unfolding future of the House of Windsor. In her mind, the line of succession for this private treasure was already mapped out with total clarity and order. From her own care, these famous sapphires would one day be handed down to Princess Charlotte, continuing their seamless journey from mother to daughter through future generations of royal women. The last rays of the evening sun filtered softly through the tall window panes, casting warm golden highlights over a framed family photograph resting on Catherine's desk, a picture of William herself and their 3 smiling children. The vision of an enduring private legacy, one that stood completely immune to the fleeting political currents, palace rivalries, and short-term struggles for influence within the royal court, filled the princess with a profound, steady confidence. The deep blue Cambridge sapphires, glistening in the dimming light with all their timeless and regal majesty, now rested in absolute everlasting safety. A priceless family heirloom, destined to be cherished from one generation to the next, forever secured far beyond Camilla's reach. After watching this story, do you think Queen Camilla's fierce reaction and early departure reflected her bruised pride as the mistress of the royal household? Or did it show that she sensed her own marginalization in the face of an unbreakable legacy linking Catherine and Princess Charlotte? In a sea of videos, I am so glad YouTube managed to bring this one to you. We pour a tremendous amount of care into researching every single detail of these royal histories. I know using a TV remote takes a little extra time, but your likes and subscriptions are the ultimate motivation for our team to keep creating careful, high-quality stories for your screen. Thank you so much for your support.